Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords. And you know one thing I love? When I'm right. But you know what I especially love? Is when I'm right and somebody else is horribly wrong. Somebody who is super confident of themselves is horribly wrong. That's the funnest of all, right? That's the most entertaining, is when they make an assertion, you make an assertion, they're convinced that you're some kind of idiot, and then it turns out you're completely right and they're utterly wrong. And it's especially funny when that happens like instantly, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples because it's relevant to the topic of today, which is that I was right about the direction Wizards is going. But the first example is actually political. I hope that you guys don't mind. It'll be very brief. I'm not going to go into great detail about it. But basically, so a couple of nights ago, I think it was Sunday, maybe early Monday, I had been making a lot of posts about Josh Shapiro, who at that time seemed like he was going to be Kamala's pick for vice president. And I was essentially trying to egg on the left about the fact that, he's Jewish, and this was something that was going to divide the Democratic Party, right? So like my posts were basically these kind of shit posts where I was reminding everyone of Josh Shapiro's heroic service in the IDF, and the fact that he had written this essay when he was younger, talking about how a two-state solution is impossible because the Palestinians can't manage a government and things like that, right? Knowing that the pro-Hamas people in the Democratic Party they wouldn't like him no matter what, right? And it ended up being true, right? But I had a guy that came over and said to on my thread, and he said, "This is stupid. What you're doing is stupid. No Democrat cares about this, right? I mean, Kamala's married to a Jewish guy, and it doesn't really matter. No one's going to mind that Josh Shapiro's Jewish, and they're not going to listen to that. If there is a tiny group of radicals, there's no way they're going to listen to those radicals, right?" That was like, dude, you're delusional, right? That is exactly what's going to happen. And he was like, "Oh yeah, you're so smart. Oh, Mr. Political Analyst or whatever." And so by Monday evening, it becomes clear that even though, Kamala was supposedly going to announce her VP pick on Monday night in Philadelphia. Josh Shapiro is the governor of Pennsylvania, right? So that made it very clear that was the guy that she was going to pick. But suddenly that doesn't happen. It never appears. And so I go, look, see, that's proving it. And they're like, oh, it could be anything, right? And then today, we end up finding out that this guy Walls from Minnesota ends up being her pick. A terrible, terrible pick. He's super leftist, right? And he's got so many skeletons in his closet and so much crap. And he adds nothing. He doesn't appeal. Like, they needed to get someone who would appeal to, like, the normal American person. The normal American dude, basically. And the problem is that they went through a long list, right? There was, like, Cooper from North Carolina. He didn't want it. He would have been probably the best choice, but he said, no, to the hell with this. That means I'd have to spend too much time with Kamala, right? And then there was the next best option was Mark Kelly, but then you find out he's up to his neck in collusion with the Chinese, So that was out, right? And then she said, okay, well, it's going to have to be Shapiro, right? And they're going to try to fight for him against their own party, right? But then when it came out that he had been in the IDF, and the essay he wrote, that was it. There was no way. There was absolutely no way that this Democratic Party that is full of anti-Israel, anti-Semites were going to end up allowing him to be vice president, right? And of course, Kamala folded and took the side of the squad, of the Hamas squad, as it were, and picked a guy who's got all kinds of ultra leftist credentials. But anyways, I got to go back less than 24 hours later to this guy and say, "See, I was right, you were wrong," right? And that's the part I love. I love that his instant defeat in that situation. There's another one that has happened that is related to RPGs. So I'm going to now we're back onto onto the RPG subject. So a while ago, I said, I did a video that said titled something like, WotC is going all or nothing on the VTT. And in it, I pointed out that essentially they're not making books anymore. That this is it, right? Like there might be occasionally some special edition book sort of thing or box set or something like that, some kind of product as merchandising, in essence, as like a special event thing, right? But what you're not going to get is 4 or 5 crappy adventures a year in hardcover format. That is not going to happen, right? And I said that. I said they're going all in on the VTT. And on the RPG site thread related to this, there's a guy, frequently wrong guy, named Mistwell, who jumped in and said, no, they're not. They're going to keep publishing. And I was like, they don't even have a book. They don't even have a publishing division anymore for books, right? Like they're not actually. Everybody who was involved in the books has been fired. He goes, no, they haven't. It's going to happen, right? And he's like, and I predict that in a few years, when it's clear that this is all that you were totally wrong, you're just going to pretend like it never happened. You know, this is a guy obviously that's got a bit of a beef with me. It's okay. The RPG site is a very free speech environment, right? You have to work really hard to get banned from there. Mistwell is not in danger of being banned from it just for not actually liking me, though he does sometimes become annoying, right? So in any case, this guy is insisting that that I'm totally wrong, that they're going to keep doing book products, right? Then, you know, a moment later, I check out the list of upcoming products, and there's nothing, right? Like literally, the only book products that are coming up for Wizards of the Coast now are the 3 core books and 1 Art of D&D book that is also part of the 50th anniversary, and nothing else is announced after that, right? So there's nothing on the table right now about what is going to happen in terms of print. And the guy still didn't want to buy it, you know, so he just ignored that, right? But now, we had Gen Con this weekend, and there were a lot of cool, exciting things that happened at Gen Con. I'm sure some of you have heard about the thing with Blackmore. I don't really care very much about that. And there's been a lot of drama about the player's handbook being handed out to people, and I'm going to talk about that in this video. But one of the things that happened at Gen Con, or during Gen Con, was that the CEO of WotC stated that they're going to be dumping another like $125 million into Dungeons & Dragons, into developing Dungeons & Dragons. But it is going to be entirely, 100% the digital stuff, the digital content. That money is not going to anything else. It's not going to books. It's not going to box sets or even to like Beholder plushies or whatever. It's going straight into, in other words, this is another way of saying the VTT has become a money pit for them, but they're hoping that they can somehow pull out of that dive and fly soaring into the skies of microtransactions where they're going to make tons of money off of gullible gamers. I guess that's still possible. But the point is, this pretty much immediately confirmed my argument against Mistwell, and now he looks like an idiot. They basically don't give a shit about the book content of RPGs. They just don't. Now, you know who does care about the book content of RPGs? I do. Yeah. So I've got, Baptism of Fire here, Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road. If you've got Sword and Caravan, this is an excellent NPC source book and timeline source book, and it's got a few other little things there, like some more Song Dynasty tech. And if you like reading about history, this is excellent too, because it's got a complete biography of all of these incredible figures of the Crusades and the era of the Silk Road just before the Mongol invasion. And of course, World of the Last Sun, 11 years running in World of the Last Sun. We had a session on Sunday. It was very amusing. The audio for it is already out on Bill the Elf's YouTube. And as for Baptism of Fire, I ran that on Saturday and had the player characters going. They ended up going back to Poznan, and they went to the Oak Wood, the magical wood that is near to that city. and they thought they were just going to go and try to pick some magic herbs, and they ended up running into some serious danger in the form of the Alkonost, these kind of the Slavic version of sirens that make you forget everything. So it was quite a good adventure. If you're following RPG Pundit, the Pundit Files, there you will remember I had a source book there called Medieval Authentic City Guide Poznan. That is where you find the detail about the magic oakwood. But the latest issue of the Pundit Files is, I believe, still the Merry Men in Sherwood. So be sure to check that one out too. You can get any of those at the Red Room store, which only cost $3.50. All right, so don't forget that. But in any case, my point is besides plugging my stuff, which I always do, and I thank everybody who's been picking up stuff. A lot of people still buying Baptism of Fire and telling me how much they're enjoying it or want to play it or want to run it and whatever else, and I'm really, really pleased about that. Wizards of the Coast is no longer interested in books, and it just makes sense because there's no way that they can get the kind of profit that they feel makes it worthwhile out of the books. It just doesn't work for them. It's impossible. All right, and that's pretty much the end of that. But they still need these books, the 3 core books for 1 D&D, where they're going to end up trying to use that to transition the players into the new virtual tabletop and then trap them there with subscription services and microtransactions, right? That's really the only purpose of these books. And in fact, I've heard a very interesting theory from someone that actually these books themselves are probably some kind of a transitional project, that they are meant to not be particularly important, because then once they're on the VTT, they're going to come out with an entirely digital new edition, right? That might have books made for it. It might. Like I said, I'm not saying there's never, ever, ever going to be another physical Dead Tree product for D&D. Certainly not if they, for example, license out the book publishing to somebody else. That could happen. But also, even as Wizards of the Coast, they're still going to occasionally be making certain things like commissioning books or making box sets or other things like that with props and crap like that, as like special collectible stuff. Because collectibles are stuff that sell, right? Series of regular RPG books don't really sell. They don't sell enough for them, that's for sure. And they especially don't sell when the people who are writing them are morons, right? The people who are writing them have no idea how to write for D&D. So that's all part of the problem for them. But you can see how nervous they are about controlling the discourse, because the other thing that you might have already seen elsewhere on YouTube is that they have now been shutting down videos with like copyright strikes, I guess it would be, of all kinds of videos where people are talking about the new 1D&D edition, specifically a new player's handbook, and they're creating these copyright strikes because they're showing images from this book, right? Like they're doing page throughs or whatever, right? And now the interesting part is that they're not doing that to everybody. They're doing that to a large number of people, but there's another group of people that seem to be able to do these posts and have no problem. And curiously, those people are all these kind of long-term D&D influencers that have had prior relationships with Hasbro, which has led some people to think that Hasbro is actually bribing them monetarily to do this. I don't know if that's the case. I think that it's probably enough because, like, they got to go to Gen Con or wherever, to the VIP room. They got a special package. They got all kinds of stuff. They got all this merch. They're treated like celebrities, right? I don't know if... I think a lot of these people, saying that they took money might be thinking too highly of them, right? Like they're not even prostitutes, right? They're just giving it away, right? Like they're going to completely abandon all of their dignity just to get in the good graces of Wizards of the Coast and keep feeling like they're important commentators on D&D when actually they're nothing but paid shills, Like Not even paid. They're unpaid shills. They're volunteer shills telling lies for WotC, right? That's what they're doing. Now, I, fortunately, am not in any danger of getting a copyright strike because I don't know how to put up an image on a YouTube video. So there, WotC. You will never get me with that. But there we are. So that's basically what's been going on with all this. And mostly, I just want to gloat over the fact that, yet again, I am right. But it is very interesting just how all in they're going to be on the VTT, as far as I can tell. And second, that they're clearly nervous about it at the same time, right? Because I think also part of the problem is they don't have their act together. I don't think the VTT is done yet. I don't think it's fully functional. And now it looks as though, like in this demonstration thing that they did, I think at Gen Con, it looks as though it's like completely system neutral. So what's the deal with that, right? Is it going to be connected to D&D Beyond, or how is it going to work, And I think that they still don't know the answers to some of these things. And I think that there's a really, really big problem, which is that you have the people that made the VTT, you have the people that made D&D Beyond, or that run D&D Beyond, or whatever, and then you have the people that wrote the books. None of those are the same people. And I suspect that they haven't really been interacting with each other. So like the system that they've created in those books, it is undoubtedly, I know it because most of it is a system that I helped create, right? Most of it is not an ideal system for a virtual tabletop, much less all the nonsense that they put in, all the woke garbage and all of that, all the stuff that is purely performative. None of that really matters a lot in a VTT context, right? So that is a big problem. Another problem is you've got that Wizards has D&D Beyond, and then it also has the virtual tabletop. And I think that they don't want to get rid of either, but they also don't necessarily want to have both, I think they're looking for a way to combine it or something. I don't know what they're doing there. But the point is that I don't think that they've got their stuff together. And I think they know this. I think they're very worried about early adoption, especially because, if some of you, I'm sure, know how it is that if you have to be convinced to get on at the beginning of side. There's going to be all these problems, all these errors, all this crap, right? And so the only thing that's going to push you onto it is if you really end up believing in the books, right? So you end up getting the books. So they need to advertise the books in a way that makes it seem like it's the greatest thing ever, like as if it was somehow better than Baptism of Fire. Surprise! It's not. It's not even close to as good as Baptism. It's not even in the same universe as Baptism of Fire, but they want you to imagine that it is, right? And so like they have to convince people of that so that they'll buy into the book, and then from that they will try the virtual tabletop, and then they can try to lock them in with some, with the typical traps that these sorts of subscription services have, right? But they need a large enough mass at the beginning. All of this falls apart if they inaugurate the VTT and, well, first they inaugurate the VTT and no one shows up. You have like 4 people in there. Or if they inaugurate the VTT and they get 100,000 people, but then it turns out the VTT is like complete shit. It's falling apart. Everything in it is flawed, or it's insufficient. And they probably do not have the kind of team to get in there and fix it on the go, right? So there's a lot of ways that this could go horribly wrong for Wizards of the Coast still. And I think that their aggressive stance that they are taking in these copyright strikes. And remember, this is very serious, because if you get 3, from what I understand, if you get 3 copyright strikes on your channel, then your channel can be banned forever, right? It'll just be deleted, So this is something really, really serious to be doing to YouTubers, right? And Wizards is willing to get that another hit of bad reputation. I'm not saying they're right to do this. I'm saying they're willing to do it, right? But they're willing to do this to try to be able to maintain control of the narrative that the 1D&D is like the best edition of all time. That's the greatest thing, that it's going to be the most amazing thing for everybody, and it's going to be so much fun on the virtual tabletop, right? They need to have only their useful idiots. I call them that because I'm pretty sure they're not getting paid for it. They're useful idiots being the ones who are doing all the talking, you know, and everybody else has to be silenced. And so once again, they're taking a big hit of disapproval from the fandom, right? From people in the hobby, and especially from what you could call the hobby media in a sense, because that's what YouTubers are, right? We're the media of the hobby. They're looking terrible, but they're willing to risk it because they know also that a lot of us won't be the ones who are going to be vital in the future, right? If they're going VTT, it becomes a whole different hobby, and for like a lot of us, it becomes irrelevant, you know. So, anyways, that's basically the story of what's going on right now. It is accelerating. It confirms that I was right before, and I will continue to be right again, undoubtedly. So that's basically it for today. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, share it anywhere you think people will find it interesting or they'll get pissed off about it. And if you want to support me, I mean, you know, there's super thanks and things like that, but the best way to support me, as far as I'm concerned, is to buy my products and to play them and enjoy them even better. And there's hundreds of products of mine to buy, right? Like, I'm one of the most prolific authors in the OSR, maybe except for the wretched people, you know, for the Red Room, maybe. But I don't know. I think I still have a few more on them if you count all of my Pundit Presents and Pundit Files issues. But yeah, you're bound to find something that you like. Take a look at the description press the more button in the description of this video or any of my videos, and you'll see links to all of the products. I know that today there's supposed to be a new, or I don't know, today is when I'm filming it. It's on Tuesday. Maybe it's Wednesday by the time this comes out. There ought to have been a new issue of the Pundit Files. It's being a little delayed at the publisher, but I'm hoping that we'll be getting it out shortly. And for the moment, there's still, you know, the Merrymen in Sherwood, the Slavic World Tree, and like I said, the Poznan City Guide, which is really good, and it comes with the details of the magical oakwood. So check those out, and all the other ones, they're only $3.50. And I guess that's everything for today. Currently smoking. Well, I haven't actually lit it yet, but it's Lorenzetti Poker with Argento Natural. And there's Meatball for you. Meatball wanted to say goodbye. Goodbye, Meatball.